Thank you, Shirley. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to CCG. I'm Secretary General of Center for China and Globalization, also the editor of the new book, Transition and Opportunity, and this China and Globalization book series. I'm pleased and honored to be hosting this roundtable discussion today after so many distinguished guest speeches. We also including some of the contributors of this book on the roundtable, of course, including the business executives and the leading experts in public affairs, embassy officials, and the representatives from Chamber of Commerce. Topics of discussion today will be centered around the operation realities and the market environment around the multinational companies face in China, policies that significant impacts on multinational companies and the opportunities and the challenges for them in different sectors in China. We know that the two sessions is coming. This is a significant political issue, political event for Chinese market and China. So this roundtable aims to gather opinions and advances from our experts and will serve as the source of policy advisors to advance the future of development for multinationals company in China. You know, CCG is a think tank. We would like to gather those opinions and recommendations for Chinese government. As a gentle reminder, please limit your opinions within 2 to 3 minutes. The time is limited, so sorry. But today we invited so many distinguished guests from industries, from Chamber of Commerce. Firstly, I would like to invite Gloria Xu. She is the Vice Chair of MGM China. Yeah, please.
Oh, thank you, Mabel, for the opportunity, and also huge congratulations to CCG for publishing this very important and also impactful book. As York and several of our colleagues mentioned just in the keynote speeches, the voice of the business community has been relatively mute for quite some time. So it is really very important for CCG as a leading independent think tank to partner with such a respected publisher, Springer Nature, really to get the business voice loud and clear up there, so that people, especially with all these political headwinds, people understand that how important those stable and long-term business relationship is to our different communities, including the Chinese market, including that of the United States, and including that of a lot of other countries. I'm here not speak on behalf of the MGM China, but on behalf of my corporate capacity. Recently I just joined a new company called Herbal. Herbal is in the lithium and other specialty chemical industry, and it has a huge kind of growth projects plans for China, and that is in line with China's own development trend, especially as Leng Yan mentioned, the huge growth of the electrical vehicle market. So I think that the mega trends in China, basically the pursuit of a more low carbon and a sustainable development path, has created a lot of opportunities for relatively newcomers like us. And of course, we are a U.S. company and we are a resource-heavy company, but China is the biggest market. So I would like for us to capture the opportunity, I would like to borrow a title from the book, which is written actually by MGM Chair Emeritus Tim Stratford. So we need candor, we need wisdom, and also need persistence to navigate very complicated situations, business situations, political situations, and to really capture the growth opportunities. But I think, us, as a lot of American companies and lots of foreign companies, we would like to hang in here. We would like to, do our best to help forge a stable and a long-term business relationship. Thank you.
from American.
Okay, thank you for CCG's invitation. I flipped through the book. It's a very quality as well as timely publication, and my own observation is that in addition to those transition factors outlined by some of the authors as well as speakers just now, like COVID-19 control and the geopolitical tensions, I would say there is a unique driving factor of China's economic transition towards the high quality development. It's the digital economy and 5G, which have led to increasing opportunities for multinationals like Qualcomm. We all know that Chinese government has established digital economy as one of the key development strategies for the 14th five-year plan. And actually President himself has also hosted a Politburo study session in last November in order to better drive the healthy development of the digital economy, and also 5G as well as one of the key new infrastructures back to year 2019. So the digital enabled COVID-19 measures have been driving the robust development of digital economy, like mobile shopping, remote learning, online entertainment, and smart medical treatment. Like what Roberta highlighted in her speech, digitalization is one of the key opportunities facing her industry and her hospital, and if regulated properly, can further her hospitals' online capabilities and therefore quality services to their patients. Also the just concluded the Beijing Winter Olympics has adopted over 212 new technologies, including AI, VR, AI, 8K broadcasting. Some of them are primarily driven by 5G technologies. So as far as Qualcomm is concerned, we are the innovator and the contributor of 5G technologies and the patent technologies, and we provide these leading technologies to our Chinese partners to enable them to be more competitive at both home and abroad markets, therefore making win-win outcomes for Qualcomm's ecosystem partners in China. So as China has been driving the dual circulation strategy over the past years, the opportunities for Qualcomm is not limited to China market itself, but also the overseas expansions by our Chinese partners. On daily basis, we have been facing increasing demands from our Chinese partners about how to better support them in their overseas expansion, not only for the sake of the market, but also for the sake of the adoption of new technologies, new ideas, and new models. Yeah. So my overall remarks is that the transition opportunity for multinational like Qualcomm is not only limited to China itself, but also can be expanded to overseas market. Yeah, thank you.
Also join our discussion. First, I would like to invite Mr. Martin Miller, who is the chairman at Swiss Chinese Commerce. Also,
thank you very much for having me here today and for giving me the opportunity to write the part of the book. And I think it's a very well put. You have put it in a very good way to have the business leaders and organizations and people from like KPMG and researchers. I think it's very valuable book. So I think I've realized, especially during COVID pandemic, that now it's time for us, the business leaders, the organizations, to have a voice in two ways, internal and external. I suffer a lot when I read the Western media. because what I experience in China, what I learned from our member companies, we have more than 1,000 Swiss companies active here in mainland China. The feedback from them is completely different from what I read in the Western media. The journalists, they cannot travel to China. They cannot really experience. They just collect their information from, I don't know which sources. I don't talk about those sources, but also now it's really time to externally to have a voice of the business community, international business community, and the international business leaders here in China to tell people around the world what's really going on here. It's not enough just to have internal meetings. We also have to do PR now in our countries, around the world, talking to journalists and media. And of course, in China itself, as Jörg Wuttke has mentioned, to talk to policymakers. I mean, several hundred proposal of the EU JAM is really something very valuable. And I hope it will be heard and implemented in new plans. Switzerland is famous for being neutral. So a few weeks ago, some organizations have chosen Switzerland to publish a book, a black book about China. I don't know if you have heard about it, but don't read it, otherwise you get depressed. It's a collection of all the sins that the Chinese government has maybe done or maybe not done during the last 40, 50 years. But it was published a few weeks ago. And people who don't have access directly to information from within China, of course, they trust, they believe that this is China. And so that's why we have to really raise the voice, make us heard. And this book comes really at the right time. And thank you, both of you and all of you, for your contribution.
Thank you, Martin. There's another contributor of a new book is Miss Marinda Wang, who is the managing director of ETS China. It's your turn.
Thank you for the invitation from CCG. And the English testing industry is actually a very niche market compared to other industry. But as everyone is aware, for the last year, the education industry has experienced a lot of great changes in China. So for ETS, we have a 40 years partnership with China, and China remains to be the largest TOEFL and the second largest GRE market globally. And we have experienced it and promoted international education in China for the past 4 decades. But looking forward, we are indeed experiencing a lot of opportunities, but more coming from the challenges. The first is from the government policies about the double reduction, but that was not too relevant to the international education. So our challenges mainly comes from the pandemic. So a lot of Chinese students, they prefer to study locally. And so they may not choose to go to international school or study, go overseas for study. So that was quite a big challenge and change for the global education industry. And the second is also related to the pandemic, because our tests were mostly delivered face-to-face in a public testing center. But because of the pandemic, we have to shift all the testing from the physical testing center to online. So we developed the home testing. And definitely this will also comes with some risks and also with opportunities. But we do see a lot of business opportunities, coming from the new government context. So first is that China still encourage the opening up for education and encourage the building of international talents for China students. So we have to reposition us not only as a service provider for helping Chinese students to go overseas, but also we position us as a bridge for Chinese students to becoming international talents. The second opportunity comes from the universities. We do see China still encourages a lot of Sino US or Sino UK education programs in a lot of higher education sectors. So we can, as ETS is the largest per institution for research and the testing development, we can definitely contribute to helping building and design the curriculum and also helping with the teacher training. And the third opportunities come from some regional policies, for example, like Hainan, because for Hainan, the government encourages universities to open campuses in Hainan and also to attract more talents. They are building more international schools for the city, for the local citizens. So we do see there was still needs from some regions, especially for some more internationalized cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and some new regions like Hainan. So we will also embrace those business opportunities by working more closely with government and also through some support from think tanks like CCG. So my overall comments is that we do experience more challenges, but we do see a lot of new opportunities from some very China-centered niche markets. So looking forward, we will continue the journey with students and the teachers in China, just as we have for the last 40 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda. ETS is also the representative of the foreign service provider in China. So you mentioned some opportunities and challenges, but most of them are opportunities, can have our business landscape bigger and bigger. Thank you very much. We also invited another contributor of this book is Mr. Joseph Cash. He is also the policy analyst of China Britain Business Council from CBBC. Welcome you. It's your turn.
Thank you, and Dr. Wang, Dr. Miao, it's a pleasure to contribute to this book. My chapter, the role of UK companies in the multilateral trade frameworks of the Asia Pacific, trying to take trade with China from a different angle. I think, obviously, these bilateral trade organizations that are well represented in the room today, we have a tendency to view our companies' trade with China bilaterally. But of course, the UK and French, Australian, American companies, they're not only in China, they're in Singapore, they're in other markets of the Asia Pacific region. And it's interesting that there are more and more free trade arrangements in the Asia Pacific region that companies can take advantage of. If you are a UK company with an invested presence in Singapore, you can use the terms of these agreements to move staff, move data, move capital around the region. And it's a very new phenomenon. These trade deals have really come into their own in the last 5 years. And China has been one of the kind of leaders in pursuing that move towards multilateralism in the Asia Pacific. I mean, it's impressive. In the last 10 years, I think China has negotiated 5 FTAs, which is not a small feat. An FTA is really hard to negotiate. It also has managed to retain a deputy director general at the World Trade Organization. So it shows real intent in pursuing this move towards multilateralism. Now, of course, I'm aware that there are questions, concerns. People say, well, how can China expect to accede to the CPTPP? It's some of the most liberal, forward-thinking trade policy on offer. There would have to be a lot of reform on China's side. It would have to open its markets far wider. If you think back to when the EU-China CAI was first, agreed in principle and, negotiated, there were very similar clauses there where China said it was going to open its markets further. So to my mind, China has now twice said that it plans to introduce reforms to open its market to make it more accessible to foreign business. And these are big negotiations. So you wouldn't say that unless you were thinking about making such reforms. So I think the future for China and these multilateral frameworks is bright. And I think UK, Australian, American companies, they stand to gain as well. From the UK side, obviously British business welcomed China's application to join the CPTPP. The UK hopes to be a member of CPTPP alongside it. And also the UK will probably look to join the RCEP as well. So that's the UK perspective, but I think that there are parallels that can be drawn for companies, whichever market they're from. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. You mentioned CPTPP, and China right now announced would like to join CPTPP as well. And yes, CCG have done a lot of work on this and research on China's accession of CPTPP. I think that is a higher level of international business and international trade mechanism. It's a trend for all our global market. And next, we would like to invite our representative from USCBC, Mr. Matthew Margulies.
Thank you very much, Mabel, to Dr. Wang Huiyao and to the Center for China and Globalization for putting together a book on such an important topic that, frankly, so many speakers today have underscored the importance of. It's really timely and necessary. And thank you, of course, for inviting our President Craig Allen to not only contribute, but to speak here today. And so I don't want to duplicate too many of his remarks because I think he talked about the status of US-China relations, the commercial relationship, and MNCs in China, specifically American MNCs in China, and the importance of all that. So he did a great job. I would underscore a little bit about what Craig did mention, I think is important to cover, is that most facets of the US-China relationship are fairly strained today, especially on the political side of the relationship. And frankly, the state of bilateral relations has not changed significantly, spanning across now 2 US administrations and changes to control of US Congress since really the trade war began 4 or 5 years ago. US policy towards China frames the relationship as fiercely competitive. Most of the previous administration's policies towards China remain in place, and some strategic efforts are underway, frankly, many are underway to multilateralize a lot of that into various policy forums and frameworks, signaling a long-term systemic competition between the US and China. I will say this administration has been clear that they want to manage that competition responsibly. I think that's an important signal. And similarly, China's policies toward the US have not shifted significantly over the past few years. China's positions also reflect an effort to manage competition responsibly with the US by not initiating overt or provocative retaliation for many actions so far. So while we know many longstanding policy challenges still remain, and there are efforts to pursue self-reliance in certain areas while promoting domestic companies or little giants, it's created somewhat of a chicken and egg dilemma between the US and China, where one side accuses the other of being protectionist, the other side blaming the policies of the other, and thus inducing them to respond. Regardless of our starting point, the fact remains that today is frankly probably the most legally complex period for American multinationals operating in China in recent memory. For the US-China Business Council, simply put, our message or our purpose is to create a level playing field for foreign companies, American companies, excuse me, in China, promoting a healthy, stable US-China commercial relationship. And as Craig noted in his remarks, trade and investment in China is good for both the US economy, US workers, and US households. There's ample amount of data to support that. A healthy commercial relationship means more globally competitive companies. Companies innovate not only outside of China, at headquarters in the US, but also, of course, inside China. So bringing that innovation from the US to China and China to the world is good for all of us. China is a top 5 export market for 45 out of 50 states in America. That means we're selling more than just soybeans and aircraft and microchips to China. In fact, China's a top 3 export destination for many US states, behind only our NAFTA trading partners, Mexico and Canada. The trade and investment is mutually beneficial, of course. This means a report from Hurin recently found that the top 100 foreign companies in China contribute at least 6% of China's total GDP, just 100 companies. This means greater access to innovative products and technologies in China. This means greater employment, tax contribution, and supply chain and value chain upgrading. And this means repatriation of profits to shareholders in the US and elsewhere. So what we have is a robust and intertwined ecosystem of capital, technology, goods, and services that are underpinning our relationship despite talks of decoupling intentions. As I look ahead in what is sure to be a political year in both the US and China, I see many challenges. I also see opportunities. First, I think there are very busy political agendas for both countries this year, which hopefully can mean that both are more focused on domestic issues, which will create some breathing room and some needed stability for at least the rest of this year. I do see a challenging legislative agenda in the United States in Congress that has a chance to complicate things further on labor, supply chain, and investment and capital controls. I also see a mix of longstanding policy concerns here in China related to market access, domestic preference, some of the other areas that Craig mentioned. But four, perhaps most importantly, and this has been underscored by several speakers so far, I see an increasing and growing gap on views of China between US-based headquarters and China-based operations for our members. The gap has always existed. We have to recognize that gap has always been there, but it has no doubt been exacerbated by COVID travel restrictions. The impacts, the challenge of all this is that the impacts will not necessarily be felt today. There are certain impacts felt today, but over the long-term horizon, when it comes to strategic business decisions, I do see impediments to a bettering of relations. Despite the challenges and the news flow that we constantly see talking about the challenges in the relationship, it's easy to lose sight of the opportunities. So I'll just talk very, very briefly. USCBC continues to push forward an agenda focused on finding areas for our business communities to work together and achieve breakthroughs in cooperation. We've established cooperative relationships and forums to support the public health system by focusing on cooperation related to commercial health insurance in China. We're focusing on sustainability and decarbonization initiatives that promote positive policy recommendations to the Chinese government that support 2030, 2060 goals. And of course, ongoing business community engagement with the Chinese government and policymakers to talk about areas of shared opportunity and concern. The American business community has made its voice and views very clear on the importance of US-China relations and their commitment to both markets. We will continue supporting commercial relations and are happy to have partners like CCG and all of the companies that are in the room today supporting us and working towards this shared goal together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you very much. And today we have two representatives from USCBC. Just now is Matthew, and before US, Craig Allen from US. Thank you very much. As US-China relation is very important, the most important bilateral relation in the world. And the business circle and Chamber of Commerce are very important power and force for our bilateral relationship. Thank you very much. Next, we would like to invite the representative from EU Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Guido Giacconi, Vice President of EU Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. Yeah, it's your floor.
Thank you, Dr. Wang and Dr. Miao. Also, not only USCBC is overrepresented, also European Chamber of Commerce is overrepresented with Jorge that contributed and myself. I want just to, first of all, congratulate for the quality of the content and the quality of the contributors of this book. I'm really sorry that probably it came a bit late, the publication, after President Xi took the pledge of to get carbon neutral by 2060, and I've seen in the book that the carbon neutrality has been appear 7 times in the book. Probably, if it will be published in a few months, it would contain hundreds of this. What I mean, and this is a suggestion for what and the CCG could deepen further in the next months, where European Chamber, of course, I would like to contribute, is about the perspective of how carbon neutrality pledges in the world, in China, in Europe, in US, in Japan, will change the global trading relationship, the economic models, and how the carbon neutrality pledge could be the lever for also driving the China reforms. We at European Chamber are carrying out a very thorough study, survey across our members, interviews for understanding how the carbon neutrality could change the business model in China, how ESG in China is impacting the global ESG, and what is the global outlook. Of course, I cannot anticipate the results, but the concern can be summarized in, first, also carbon neutrality is going to be politicized. As the Olympic Games, and as we have seen the outcome of the COP26, has been politicized and has been an embarrassing outcome where the European business in China and outside China would not benefit from the big business opportunity coming from this new perspective. The second, I mean, the carbon neutrality and decarbonization is the only ground where all the powers find and agree they must cooperate. Mr. Kerry came to Shanghai talking of that. Mr. Borrell and Mr. Timmermans from European Commission declared that this is the only topic where Europe and China agrees 100%. The Euro-China summit in April is going to have a big part of this. And we, as business community, really expect this topic is going to be the one where all the tensions, all the politicization of business will be accommodated. So, for concluding, I hope CCG will take this as an opportunity for the fourth book. And of course, I take already the commitments on behalf of our chamber to provide the full cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Giacconi. And we also invite some representative from Japan, Mr. Hideo Kawabuchi from Embassy of Japan. He's the Counselor of Embassy of Japan. If you would like to say some words, yeah.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure. It is an honor to be here, celebrating your publishing book. Honestly speaking, as an embassy guy, only me from not only Japan but also other countries. So it's a very difficult position from the point of view. Anyway, I would like to comment a little bit confusing situation happening between Japan and China. Honestly speaking, Japanese government just now we are pushing investment and trade between China and Japan, and but there is so many misunderstanding information from media. So Japanese companies, Japanese industry is feeling kind of fear to come or to trade between China. So just now, our many responsibility to be here is to persuade Japanese industry there is a very good opportunity to do business in here, such as a US company or EU companies. But several information from media is correct. That is especially industrial policy from Chinese government. It means there is some contradiction from contradiction of policy from the point of industrial policy. It is one hand, Chinese government said open and development Chinese market from inviting many companies, many industry from overseas. But on the other hand, especially MIIT, they are pushing Go-Chanfa policy. Go-Chanfa policy. If the Go-Chanfa means just domestic production policy, is okay. But many Japanese industry and government, we are feeling this Go-Chanfa policy is almost nationalization policy. Especially we Japanese government, we respect to establish a regional supply chain between China and Japan. However, just now, many Chinese policy and many Chinese Gentsu Famien, they are promoting just pushing Chinese company to purchase all of technology from Japanese industry, especially they're realizing Chinese industry are lacking the technology, especially from the material or parts or manufacturing machines, this kind of technology, very detailed technology. But they know Japanese industry has this kind of technology. So they are very keen to looking for Japanese technology. So if Chinese government would like to succeed to expand Chinese impact to all over the world, they should how to say, be transparent, to be transparent, to have transparency. And also the point is the word of national security. Of course, such as U.S. Business Council guy, he already mentioned about the national security problem. Not only U.S. but also China. Their definition of national security is too broad and non-transparency. So it is difficult for Japanese industry to do business in China. So we hope CCG to explain to Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party the most important role is to how to say, to identify what is national security. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hideo. He used to be the representative of Japan External Trade Organization. So he also represent the trade circle in China before. Thank you very much for your opinions. Next, we would like to invite CCG's old friend, Stephen Lynch, who is the Managing Director of Britain Chamber of Commerce in China.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and congratulations on the book launch today. Just on the conversation of realities of doing business in China, I'll take a British Chamber of Commerce in China perspective. I think going on from what Vaughan said, China has not stood still in the last 40 years of opening up and reform, and we can see that there's so many opportunities. The role of the Chamber is to kind of give that balanced, nuanced perspective, both to the Chinese authorities here as well as to the UK authorities back in the UK. So just recently we produced a sentiment survey pulsing British businesses' views and perspectives here in China. And it's filled with these nuances. It's filled with this balance. So on the very positive, we're seeing British businesses more optimistic than the year before, which is fantastic. Maybe not surprisingly due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but again, that's a very positive move. We're also seeing that being backed up by investment. We're seeing more investment from the major multinational companies. Very few companies are actually pulling out of China. So the optimism is being backed up by investment. And that's largely due to the market potential. 82% of businesses say it's market potential, it's market size. One thing I also think is quite interesting, if we were to have this conversation 20 years ago, we'd just be seeing British businesses in Beijing and Shanghai, but we're actually seeing businesses headquartered all over the country. The second and third tier cities having huge potential. We can see that through tech and innovation, healthcare, professional services, especially down in the Greater Bay Area. However, on the other side, the nuance of this we are seeing issues and we're seeing concerns. 65% of businesses have said it's got harder to do business in China. Now, when we consider how tough the year was last year of COVID, 65% of businesses have said it's got harder to do business. And that's largely due to COVID restrictions, regulations, implementations of regulations, but also travel. One thing to highlight is the UK still does not have direct flights with China. And that is causing a significant issue for business leaders, but also personally. Now, one of the things I'd just like to pick up on that is why is that travel such an issue? Well, we can't communicate, we can't engage with China if we don't have that people-to-people cultural exchange. One of the things to highlight is university courses studying Chinese and looking at Chinese in the UK has dropped significantly in the last 2 or 3 years, and that will continue to drop if we cannot come and engage with China. Again, not a positive trend moving forward. So again, for us, the people-to-people cultural engagement is really important. And again, why? Because the people who come, study, work here are advocates for China. They become the business leaders in China. If you look 20, 30 years ago, the people who study Chinese, they're now the ambassadors, they are now the business leaders. So again, that people-to-people cultural engagement is absolutely critical. I suppose also just looking forward, one of the biggest opportunities that my colleague from the European Chamber mentioned is China's 30-60 net zero plan. And again, we all collectively see the importance and the area of engagement for that. But sustainability net zero is not an island. It cannot just operate alone. We need bilateral, we need multilateral engagement around that to really hit these targets. And again, that comes back down to engagement. So from the British business perspective, we call for more engagement, not less engagement with China. And I'm really, really pleased to see we've seen some high-level dialogues between the UK. We've seen some high-level dialogues with China and other countries. And we look forward in 2022 to more bilateral and multilateral engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's quite impressive what you mentioned is regarding to the people-to-people exchanges, like Roberta just now in her speech and some of the other panelists discussions mentioned the people-to-people exchange. We look forward, we will find that for our new generation, next generation, the people-to-people engagement is quite important, more and more important. Thank you so much. And next, we would like to invite some representatives from industry. Ms. Dong Ruiping as from Herbalife China. She is a vice president of Herbalife China, also a CCG senior council member. It's your turn.
Thank you, Dr. Miao. First of all, it's a pleasure to present today, and also congratulations to CCG for publishing this important book. Actually, I would like to talk from two directions. One, based on the title of this book, Opportunities. We're in the health food industry. We see tremendously opportunities in the business, especially because of the pandemic, the people really care about their health, and they're looking for solutions and consumption of healthy food. In addition, I think the healthy aging is also a topic for the society, and it provides good opportunity for businesses of Herbalife. In addition, I think the younger generation, especially Gen Z, they're also looking for personalized nutrition, etc. So I think the great opportunities for us to develop in China. From the transition point of view, I think because of the pandemic, and also because of the the development of the e-commerce, we see there are changes in the purchasing habits of the customers. So I think this also brings some challenges to our business, and as Herbalife, we realize the change and also the challenges that we invested a lot in digitalization in the past several years, and we hope that we can, serve our customers better. I think on the other hand, then platform like CCG, like the chambers, that we can actually promote the exchanges between the regulators, especially on policy making between the two countries, and I mean US, China, and maybe some other countries. We hope that through those communication, that there are more opportunities for the Chinese policymakers to provide the industry some stable expectation in new policies, etc. So I think that's our expectation, and wish that we can work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we would like to invite the representative from IBM, Ms. Agnes Cui, who is the Vice President of Government Affair of IBM. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Miao and Dr. Wang, for your invitation to this important event today, and congratulations on the book launch. It's a really important publication in this very special transitional period. I think for GR professionals, we carry a mission of telling a good China story to our headquarters and also vice versa. Right, so I think this book will serve the purpose of bridging the gaps of understanding about China and help making contributions to the to the improvement of bilateral relations. So for IBM, just a quick introduction, because we have been undergoing several times of transformation. Now, what we have two major business lines. One is IBM Consulting. In this regard, we are peers with KPMG, right? And we also provide technology in the hybrid cloud and AI space. So without further repeating what the speaker said about the opportunities in China, I just want to say that as MNCs, because we are optimistic about the China's future, we should think and act like a partner. Think about how we can contribute to China's national goals or the major national strategies. There are three aspects I'm thinking that we can consider to help China achieve its goals. One is technology leadership. For MNCs who operate in China for years, we all have our technology, leading technology in certain industry. That's how we establish ourselves here. So as President Xi Jinping said, we want to make China a market for the world, shared by all, right? So usually MNCs provide the world-class innovative products to China. So definitely, given the size and the potential of the market, there are huge opportunities for that. And also, I think the key here is whether and how we can remain that technology advantage, given the faster rising of the local industry. In another aspect, China is determined to building an innovative-driven economy. So this cannot be achieved by shutting the door, just doing everything by yourself. It's totally economically impossible. So with this, it has to compete with strong players. If you want to become a tiger, you have to work with a tiger, learn from a tiger, then you become a tiger, right? You cannot just compete with inferior competitors. So in that regard, I think there's a lot for MNCs to do to help China in this regard, such as fostering talents, incubate the startups. There are lots of opportunities if we look at the 14th five-year plan, especially at the regional level. Another opportunity lies in, for many Chinese companies, they do have the ambitions to go global. They want to be globally competitive, right? But it's very difficult. They need foreign companies to help them, for example, build a globally operable platforms. They also need MNCs to provide endorsement if they want to penetrate into global markets. They need our expertise to navigate through the regulatory complexities in different markets. So these are all the areas we can work with China in a more mutually beneficial way. I also want to talk about thought leadership, sorry. So because we are also in the consulting business, for over the past few decades, we have helped so many Chinese companies, from high-tech companies like Huawei to traditional companies like China Resources, Wuliangye. with their digital transformation. So given the accumulated experiences, expertise in managing global presences, in supply chain management, in leadership training, there's a lot for MNCs to work with China in achieving, in developing its digital economy, in achieving its carbon neutrality goals. The last aspects I want to talk about is talent. So over the years, MNCs have contributed huge talent pools to China. We can, I think everyone could see the trend, like in the past few years, lots of talent flow from MNCs to local Chinese companies. So when we have meetings with customers, like the Chinese companies, used to be our colleague, right? They are sitting on the other side of the table. So that's a good thing, right? The easier flow of talents. That's how we contribute to China's overall development and innovation as well. So especially in the digital economy era, there's a huge gap in China's digital talents. So what we can do is to figure out these gaps and figure out ways to work with China to fill such gaps. That's all I have to share. And thank CCG again for this excellent opportunity, and hopefully we can work with you more in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Cui. Yeah. And next, we would like to invite another beautiful lady who is Liu Chang, Vice President of Knorr Asia Pacific, which is a German company. I remember. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Miao. So first of all, congratulations to CCG on the publishing of this important and successful book. And then I'm really honored to be invited for today's discussion. So as is stated in the book, international business is a very critical contributor to the global economics, while MNCs are the key participants and representatives and contributors, drivers to the global economics. And as my company, as an example, in the rail industry, we are leading operators, suppliers in the rail industry, and we have participated, witnessed, and contributed to the really faster development of China's rail industry in the last 40 years, as well, beginning of the opening up of the China policy. And on the other hand, we really benefit a lot from this development and have a very stable development of our business. So how to keep this win-win situation together between China and MNCs in China? I think it's never been a one-way street. It requires joint efforts from different perspectives, including governments, MNCs in China, as well as think tanks like CCGs and chambers, all these important and influential powers. So from the government, we are looking forward to a continuous improved business environment in China, which could offer MNCs more, let us feel more secured and confident to continuous deep rooting in China and expand our investment in China. And on the other hand, from MNCs, actually, as the name of the book, the transition and opportunities, the last transition we have seen that MNCs in China made is that the role of China. What do they think of China? What China means to them? I think that it takes some change from taking China purely as a market to a production base, then to a more value chain or system, and to currently it considers China as a strategic partner, like investing more functions in China, including R&D. And then in this way, the multinational companies proactively embrace the change in China. I used to work on a research on multinational companies in China, on their localization strategy and executions in China, how it impacts their own performance in China and the local economics in China. And based on the facts and the data we researched, we found out that actually the localization efforts of multinational companies in China benefits both its own performance as well as its global value chain, as well also to the local development. So the multinational companies will continuously seize the chance and handle the transition and seize the opportunities. This is what we can do in China, continuous being the bridge and continuous our efforts. And the other very important perspective is the efforts from the think tank like CCG, like make our voice heard of the outward from the government, and together with the chambers that we can make more contributions to the continuous success for us. So quoting a very popular sentence these days that together for a shared future. I'm looking forward to more cooperations with CCG and for a shared future. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your great words. Yeah, next, actually so far there are two guests on our roundtable didn't speak. We would like to invite Mr. Robin Tall from Airbus.
Thank you. So I'm very glad to attend this meeting. Airbus China CEO Mr. Xu contributed one article to this book. Even last year, despite the pandemic, Airbus also launched two new cooperation projects in China. We have a assembly line in Tianjin, and it will be expanding. It will producing more aircraft this year. And also we have another project which has been decided to be located in Chengdu. So it's about a full life cycle aircraft service. So maybe people have been used to meeting virtually online, but as some other speakers said, people-to-people meetings, people need to see each other in person. So we hope, and I'm very optimistic, cautiously optimistic, the day will come. The international flights will resume and then recover gradually to normal, maybe gradually in a few years. So we hope. Once again, I would like to use that sentence. Together for a shared future. I think the future will be bright. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chang, and thank you, your CEO contributed article in this great book. We hope our book have more readers in the future, as we had a great records on our other three books in English published by Springer Nature. And yeah, we have a few minutes to close. If there's other guests would like to end some points, it's your floor. And on our roundtable, anyone would like to say some words and their points? If yeah, anybody says, yeah, okay. If there's no, we would like to say thank you so much for our great contributors of this book and our panelists discussions. We had a great lunch and